Hello!
Hey everyone!
Welcome to Happiness Hunch. We are Lynn and Mike, and on this channel we talk about the hunches that we have in this life. And with it being January, we thought we would focus on all the challenges that are surfacing on the web right now. So there are challenges around budgets, there's challenges around being minimal, doing minimal things in your life, trying to minimize stuff. There's challenges on the internet around our body, dietary challenges, fasting challenges, fitness challenges. And in fact, don't you think that probably the most popular challenges that are going around the web and in the news really do revolve around body? So is that a good idea? Let's talk about it. Well, on the one hand, any challenge that you are willing to accept involves some level of reflection. So you've gone through a whole year, and so January, you face a new year, and the idea of reflection seems like a really great thing because you kind of look back long enough to think about the year and what happened and what you might do to improve yourself for the next year. So that seems like it could bring greater happiness, greater contentment, and those two things are highly valuable, so they're great. However, I notice that the emphasis is mostly on the body perfection element of these challenges, and as a culture, I sort of think we are obsessed around this. And so one thing I want to say is that it's understandable on one hand why we do these body challenges, because November through December, we are feasting, we're celebrating, we're with family, we're with friends, lots of occasions for eating, sometimes eating foods we don't normally eat. And so you get to January and you're like, uh-oh, time to tighten up the belt. And in lots of areas of life, but the body seems to be the main one. And we do sort of feel, every January after all that celebrating, I sort of feel a little bit more lethargic. And it really does kind of seem like a good idea. However, our culture is just obsessed with this. And so it turns up everywhere. So I was thinking about all the different places that we see it. So we have the body challenges, we have new trendy clothes that are hitting the advertising. We see it in billboards. Instagram is showing us all the beauty, what we need to look like. And then YouTube is telling us how to be beautiful. And then, of course, we have things like pornography, which is, that's a total denigration there. But all of these things are just feeding this obsession we have around our bodies, and it can become very, very destructive. And is anyone immune to this? No, I don't really think so. I wasn't, and I'm not today. My story starts with teen magazine. So as a young preteen, I had access to teen magazine. I know.
What are magazines?
I know. They're going out of style. Look, in the 80s, for this old part.
Do you actually hold a magazine? You hold a magazine.
Well, I certainly did then. Imagine people holding magazines instead of phones. It looks totally different, right? Anyway, so it started with teen magazine, and I wanted to be like those people in the magazine, so much so that I got interested in modeling. And I took classes, got a certificate in modeling, did a little bit, and then I had myself analyzed, where they put my face on a grid, and they measured everything. And they told me that my eyes were out of balance, my nose is out of whack, and they measured my body in very precise ways. I know, it's there. In very precise ways. And what did I find out there? I found out that I was like an inch and a half too short, and I had like an inch and a half extra around my midsection. So that ended up being a failure. I failed at modeling. So the next thing, I'm still getting my teen magazines and moving up to 17 and really liking all this, so I tried fit modeling, and I interviewed with The Limited for a fit model. They had tons of models come in. I made it to the last set of interviews where it was down to like 10. I can't really remember the total number of people, and I thought I might actually get this. And what did it mean? It meant extensive traveling, living part of the year in the Orient, a lot of money. I won't say how much, but a good bit of money. And what young 20-something wouldn't want to do all of that? So I was getting pretty excited. Lo and behold, I found out that my body it's the athletic shape. And again, it's a little bit too short and a little bit too thick. And so failure number 2.
Maybe you should try today.
Yeah, maybe.
Today, the fit athletic look is kind of in.
I know. Well, in the 80s, it wasn't.
I'm just kidding, by
Yeah.
the way. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
I don't want
No
you.
thanks. No thanks.
Yeah.
So I went from there. I'm still loving fashion. Why? Well, I just love art and design. That's just something I really love. And I didn't see myself as perseverating around this, but I certainly was. And so I ended up getting a degree in fashion merchandising and marketing. And so I got into clothing buying. And I was a clothing buyer for girls 4 to 14. And I enjoyed a lot of aspects of that job. I was in the advertising, the design work, meeting with buyers in New York and Georgia. So all that was great, and I wasn't realizing that I was still sizing everybody and everything up. It was just in my brain now at this point. For 10 years I did this, so it was really, really ingrained. And even the office environment, dress for success is real, I knew that if I wanted to get promoted, I had to dress a certain way. And if you didn't, it was very likely that you wouldn't get promoted. It's just the world. It's just our culture. So I just had to live with all that. And so in through all these years, I did not realize the negative self-talk that was just rolling around in my brain all the time. I was always seeing all the imperfections that I was shown by these professionals. And so fast forward a little bit, I meet Mike, and God brings us together. We have 4 great kids. And by the time I have my last one, I'm 40. And the baby chub did not come off very well after him. I went to visit a chiropractor friend of mine, and he checked my BMI and talked to me, and he said, I think what we're looking at here is insulin resistance. Well, that was kind of a big word and a term I was unfamiliar with. So I went home, I looked it up, and I did not grasp all of the ramifications of insulin resistance, but enough that I thought, well, I'll lower my sugar intake. That will be helpful. Well, I did that, and guess what? The pounds kept coming on because I hadn't dealt with the insulin resistance sufficiently. So this is going all the way up. So I'm gaining I was 160-ish right around the age of 50. And so I had gained a lot of weight, and I'm like, wow, what's going on here? So, and I'm very health conscious, and we made a lot of dietary changes. And it's not like this is a ton of weight, but I felt very distorted in my body. My body did not, I felt like there was a me inside of my body, and I was trying to find out where she was. And so anyway, I came upon keto and intermittent fasting. I'm just going to say a blurb about this because it could help someone. So keto is a insulin management diet at its core. And so I learned finally how to manage insulin, and it was huge. And as I learned that, the fat began to melt away, and so did a lot of these perseverating melt. And so did the perseverating thoughts, negative, thought patterns that I had in my brain. And it was so freeing. I remember telling you that it just felt so good to not be thinking about that anymore. I could totally take a break from it, and feeling just a whole lot more confident and just so much better, just not thinking about that. So I mentioned that in case that could help, someone else. So for women, it's all about being sexy. It's all about, that perfect style, the perfect clothing, the perfect makeup. And I'm guessing that men suffer from this too. And is that true?
Are you teeing me up? It's my turn now. So, yeah, do you want me to talk about my experience?
Yeah, so what do men go through?
Well, for guys, it's all about being big and bulky and burly, being buff, being a dude. So my story, I won't, there's not as much layers to it as yours, but I grew up, I just a small person. I always joke that I was 4'10" and 75 pounds as a freshman in high school. you know. And so as I went through my teenage years and into college and stuff, and I didn't really grow. I didn't peak out at 6 foot or whatever. I peaked out at 5'8" and about 115 pounds, or maybe 120. I don't know. But when we got married, I was 122. It was.
I was determined to.
Yeah.
Do a little
That didn't
something.
help.
I didn't want him to weigh more than me, and I definitely did weigh.
So,
I
you know,
wanted one,
it's you know, for guys, it's just about bulking up. And, you know, for me, my struggle was that I wanted to be bigger because I wanted that attention when I was younger. But I also didn't want to succumb to the pressure of vanity. And so I ended up in the end just not really doing anything about it. And I just kind of stayed small. And then as I got older, I started putting on weight, which was, you know, more fat than muscle. I never got really big, but, you know, I started getting a little pudge around the middle and a little tire around, you know, my waist, and kids were poking at my
Both of us.
at my love handles and, you know, whatever. But at any rate, but I think that, you know, in reflecting upon this, we live in a culture that just worships the body. It's sort of a cult of body. We're obsessed with body shape, body figure. And, you know, it affects, I mean, it doesn't affect everybody, but it affects a lot of people. And there's a strange dynamic to it, I think, that will kind of be my contribution to this conversation. But it's like, I think women are very insecure about their body images because they feel like they have to have a certain sex appeal and a certain figure and whatnot. And, you know, of course, that has a certain effect on guys, you know, and it makes us look at women in the wrong way, which just reinforces the insecurities, because in the woman's mind, she's never going to measure up and look as good as the models on the magazine covers or on the YouTube videos or whatever. And most of those women don't really look like that anyway.
Yeah, they're
in real life.
They're airbrushed and everything else.
Everything's staged so much, you know. And then, of course, you know, same thing, you know, as I peruse the, you know, YouTube and you look at fitness videos and all the guys are just like ridiculously unnaturally chiseled, and, you know, I mean, it's almost laughable
at this point. How much grease did you have to put on to get that look?
You know, and the obsession with the six-pack and the big burly chest and all this. But, you know, and of course, you know, guys have a lot of insecurities around performance of anything, whether it's in your job, whether it's how much weight you can push up on the bench or other areas of life. And so there's always that sort of competitive sense that drives guys, and, you know, so all of this reinforces, but I think that what ultimately falls out in the culture is that the beauties in the world who can pull it off on TV or on the magazine covers set a standard that they don't feel like they're living up to, ironically, and no one else can come even close to that. And so what ends up happening is everybody just obsesses about, you know, it just turns as an obsession on the body, and just a lot of negativity, a lot of insecurity, and then all sorts of weird social dynamics begin to emerge around that. And the other thing that I think beautiful people don't realize, in the midst of trying to always, you know, take their game up one level higher and higher, is they don't realize that they're just pushing everyone else further and further down, and so it does a lot of damage to everybody. That's the bottom line. So I think one of the things that we've come to realize is that, you know, there's a balancing act, which is, it's really important, because we have bodies, to be conscientious about taking good care of our bodies, exercising, eating right, sleeping, and maintaining some semblance of the normal human form, because that's, you know, where God wants us to be. But whenever we're driven by vanity or insecurity or desire to have a certain appeal to other people, which reduces us to the external appearance, or our identity or our value is rooted in that.
And it becomes obvious by thinking about it constantly. I think that's the signal, right?
Yes, thinking about it, everything comes back to that. And also analyzing and critiquing everybody else, or always comparing yourself to other people. That's really the problem. And so, you know, whether you're insecure because you can see that you don't have it, you don't fit the beauty mold of the culture, or you're the person who does, who never thinks that, you know, they got to keep setting the bar higher and higher. You know, it's just really kind of bad for everybody. So, you know, one of the things I think we've discovered through this process of health, maybe it didn't start right, on the right foot, or, you know, but I think as we've grown through this, we realize that the good, or the end that we really are called to seek, is just being healthy people. So
and healthy is beautiful.
yeah, and just being healthy, fit, but not obsessively worried about fitness and perfect image and body. And there's a place really for modesty in all this, where we recognize that,
that is sort of one definition of modesty. I mean, you spend a modest amount of time thinking about how you look and how your body is,
Well, and just not thinking about how you're always presenting to other people. That's the problem. I mean,
and Instagram, sure, it's a brutal battle out there in Instagram land. On the one hand, I love seeing all the beautiful images, and that's plants, and I mean, nature, it's so beautiful. But on the other hand, when it comes to human beings especially, but even if you're a gardener, like, it just seems so unrealistic and depressing in some ways.
Yeah, and to realize that really our value is not really in our external appearance. The value is really in the interior. So the more we contribute to the externalization of value and reducing people to objects of, sensible delight, eye candy, as people call it. Maybe they don't call it anymore, but that's what it used to be, eye candy. That sort of way of looking at things is just really distorted, and it distorts how we see ourselves. When we look back at the mirror, it distorts how we look at other people, and we're always reducing people and measuring people against a criteria of external beauty rather than looking more deeply. So why don't we wrap this up? Talk to the book analogy. It's a great
I had this analogy that I really like. I'm an avid reader, and so let's say there's an author that I just love, and they're coming out with a new book, and I love the setting, and I love the storyline, so I'm like, I'm going to pre-order this book. And so when you pre-order, of course, it's a hardbound book. And so finally the book comes in from Amazon. I open up the package, and the cover is just so cool, and I just can't wait to dive in. And so I'm reading the book, and every time I open that book, I'm dealing with the cover. And at some point, the book starts getting really good, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm going to ditch this cover. And so I take that little nice, beautiful cover off, and I fold it up, and I put it in my bedside table, and I jump more into the story, and I really focus all of my energy there, because that's what the book is really all about. And I kind of see us in the same light. I want to be about my story. I don't want to be about my cover. Yes, I'm going to put a reasonable amount of time, just like an author does, in the cover of their book. But where do they spend all their time? They're working on the story. And a good story just has so many amazing elements to it. There could be, there's love interests, there's failures, there's triumphs, there's wins and losses. I mean, stories are amazing. And when you finish a good book, it never really leaves you. And so I just love this analogy, because that's the way I want to think about myself. That's the way I want to think about others. And so I just encourage everyone to do that. When you see people, don't size them up. Think about their story. Everybody has hurts. Last video, we talked about the fact that we all need mercy. We all need healing. And just, to continually be mindful of the story. That's where the beauty is.
Yeah. And it's a good analogy for life, because when you're younger, the cover always looks better. And then as you age and the story matures,
right. It fades a little bit.
You end up with a hardcover that's worn on the edges. And that's a good book. That's the book we cherish in life. And so that's sort of like life. We have to realize that it's really what's on the inside that counts the most. And we want to take care of our bodies, because they are given to us as a gift from God, and we need to steward that gift. But at the end of the day, what really matters to those around us and to the God who made us is really what's on the inside of us. So
let's encourage each other along these lines, right?
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Good.
All right. Well, thanks for visiting with us today.
Yeah. And be sure to like us and subscribe below if you like these posts.
It does help to grow this channel. The more likes and subscribes we have, the more, YouTube land pushes the video around. And so we just want to help people to get over humps and deal with things in life where we can find a little more happiness, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.